Blackburn, who is incumbent, Tommy Frank, Rich Paluska. The three in the middle are currently on the board now, incumbents.
No, two.
No, just two.
Oh,
Just
okay.
two.
Just two.
Two.
Oh, that's right. We had
Mark
Robin
Mark
is not here.
Right.
He wanted to be here, but he's out of town.
No, he couldn't be
So
here
which
regardless.
two are?
Only two
really?
people can show
At
up.
least, yeah.
He couldn't be here
I'm
anyway.
If we had three here,
You're
we'd have to
right.
go through a formal meeting. It has to be recorded and everything else.
Of course, it's being recorded. Let's make sure you get my right side.
Yeah.
Yes, give me a good one. Yeah, Dee's recording it for you.
Jeff Jones, who's really Jeff kind of started things with kind of getting a little interest going with folks to go, hey, we're having elections, and we really hadn't talked to our candidates before and our board before too much in a forum like this. So thank you for that, Jeff. Tim Goodman is also running for the board. So if you guys want to start on either end, it doesn't matter.
Either way.
Let us know why you're running for the board, why you're still on the board, why you want to stay on the board,
Okay.
what plans you have.
Okay. My name's Julie Gilmer, and I've lived in River Plantation 20 plus years. And I think it's important that our community come together. I remember back during the '94 flood, everybody helped everybody else. Everybody helped everybody during Harvey. It shouldn't take a catastrophe for people to come together and work together. We have issues in this community that need the MUD board and the CIA to work together on some issues, along with working with the county, okay? And there are just a lot of things there. I was at the last meeting, and there's some issues that some documents were missing because they were damaged during the flood. This is 2018. We should not be having records lost due to a flood. They should be stored securely in the cloud. I know that makes me sound young. I'm not young. I'm almost 60, okay? I'll be 60 this year, as a matter of fact, so I'm not young,
That's
okay?
young.
So, that's young, okay?
It's all a matter.
But if we want to continue to bring in young families into this community to buy our homes when we retire, to buy our homes when we go somewhere else, we have to fix things. We have to. So, that's my spiel.
My name's Ed Blackburn. I've been on the board now for 8 years. I've lived in the community since '86, went through the '94 flood, took a little water in my house. I own property in this district, taxable property, personal property, not commercial property. And also I live in East Plantation. I've been on the board. The board had many challenges when I first came on the board. But the things that the board was looking at was to keep our clean water, to keep our rates low, to work with the county, to work with the San Jacinto River Authority, to work with Lone Star, and come up with a way that we can secure our water rates. If you notice, our water rates are low because we're not with the San Jacinto Water Authority. We're able to move that out through a long process. Probably took about 3.5, 4 years to do that. It's a very slow process. Everything in the MUD moves very slowly. Things aren't instantaneously. You need to do a lot of planning. You need to look at what's going to be the outcome, how are we going to reduce water intake, how are we going to do these things, and all these things take time. We have a great manager in the MUD district, which keeps us all straight. Some of the issues that people are talking about, are sometimes, it's real nice to say everything should be put onto the cloud, except a lot of these records were 40, 50, 60 years old. Most companies don't go back in and start putting everything on the cloud. So I understand records were lost, should be there secured, yes, but the MUD district felt that the building was built up high, and we wouldn't have the flood, except we didn't realize about the water that was coming out. So there are some areas that would look at, but I think as overall what the board has been able to do was to keep clean, safe water, to build up a reserve, to build up redundancy within our system, which was very lacking. Our wells, some of our wells were tied together, so if one well failed, the other well failed, so we were able to separate those wells. We've worked some major upgrading within the sanitation plant, belt presses. We've just redone a lot of area in that. So we've got a lot of things that we've been going. And another thing that I think is very important, we have saved over the last 8 years roughly $1.8 million. We have over $2 million in the bank right now as cash reserve. So we have this cash reserve so that we will not have to get a bond if we have a well that would go out. The Doe well is going to be about $2 million. So we've done a lot of things. I know there's a lot of things people have been talking about, and I'm not saying that they're not important, and I'm not saying that there's not something we should look at, but I think that the MUD board on a whole has done an excellent job. I'd like to stay on the MUD board. There's a couple projects that I'd like to see take place. We've been working on them for a couple, 2 or 3 years. And I also think that people on the MUD need to be easygoing and not jumping to conclusions. We tend to jump to conclusions. We get on next door and say things, and all of a sudden it becomes law. So I'd like to stay on the board. I'm asking for everybody's vote. If anybody has any questions afterwards, I'll be happy to answer.
You really ain't much to say. My name's Thomas Frank. I came on the board the same year Ed did. I've been there 8 years. I've been the treasurer on the water board for the last 8 years. I work with the manager and the accounting firm to keep the money invested. Water districts are pretty limited in what you can put money in. It's mostly Texas bonds, or say we primarily stick a lot with CDs because we get the banks to work with us. A few years ago, they made a couple of changes. The banks were getting where they didn't want water district money because most water districts were putting $300,000 and $400,000 on deposit that required federal insurance over and above the standard FDIC insurance that the banks didn't want to approve, didn't want to pay for them. So we had a bunch of CDs come up. We couldn't move them. Nobody wanted them, so we spread them around, and we try to keep the deposits around $200,000 in each bank. That's why we've got them in about 7 banks. When I came on the board, there was some controversy at the same time. Ed covered most of the projects we've covered. I'd like to stay on for another 4 years. We're working on a couple of projects. Everybody probably notices in the neighborhood now the big trucks running around with lining all the sewer pipes with a lining which should increase, not increase, but increase the strength of the pipe so they shift. If the outer surface should crack, the plastic lining inside should not crack. We did raise some sewer rates $10. Those sewer rates, once we get our $300,000 recouped over a 3-year period, will be lower than that $10 raise. So it's a temporary increase. And Ed mentioned the new well, but there is definitely a need for a new well, regardless of what some of the people in the neighborhood have said. That well went out. That well 2 failed in 1991. It was re-sleeved. Expected to last about 10 years. Luckily, it's lasted till now. But right now, it's failing. Harvey caused a lot of problems with it. It completely went out. I don't know how you would have existed in this neighborhood for 12 days without water. But if it had not been for well 3, you would have went 12 days with no water in this neighborhood. That's something that we didn't publicize. We just kept it quiet. If it hadn't been for well 3, you went 12 days after Harvey because the water in well 2 was contaminated. It took 12 days for DEC to let us turn it back on. And no matter what you think about well 1, if it ran 24/7, would not furnish more than 10% of the houses in this neighborhood. Like I say, I'm running for re-election. There's a project on a new well we need to put in, a couple other projects we're going to work on, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rich Poliska. I'm probably the senior citizen on the table here. 69 years old. I've been living in River Plantation for almost 7 years now. About 3.5 years ago, I got involved with an issue that involved the MUD board, and for over a year, I attended their meetings. I got a chance to see how they worked, got a chance to know the people, and finally we got the issue resolved, which took over a year to do. And I kept tabs on the MUD board ever since then, mainly through their manager, Richard Ramirez. And Richard and I talk usually every 2 to 3 weeks, and I ask him questions about what's going on. The main issue that I have with the MUD board right now is redoing the storm drain that passes through and behind much of our houses, because it's in serious disarray. I mean, there's whole sections that are being torn up that need to be filled back in again. And we need to do that because during Harvey, before the dam let out the water, 2/3 of the storm drain was full. And that water was just churning and churning and churning, but it was going straight out of River Plantation. It wasn't affecting any of us. It did cause more erosion and more problems to the sides of the storm drain and the bottom of the storm drain. My main issue is twofold. Number one, to get that storm drain fixed once and for all, repaired properly instead of patched. And the second thing is, I'd like more transparency from the MUD board, because I'm having to go to Richard Ramirez and flag him down and ask questions. Richard, what are we doing about this? He goes, oh, well, I had to turn it over to an engineer now. I can't do it myself anymore. So the board informed me I had to turn it over to an engineer. So I wait 6 months, I go, what did the engineer say? Well, he's still looking at it, okay. Then they come by and they paint numbers on the side of the storm drain. Great. I got white numbers that I can look at now out my back window. Richard, what are they doing about the numbers? Oh, well, I'm not sure. So over a year has gone by, and now I'm wondering, have they stopped this? What's going on? If they had transparency, if they would inform us of what transpires at their meetings and what their concerns are, maybe the rest of us could get behind projects like this. Right now, it's pretty hit and miss finding out information.
I thought you were on the board already. No.
No, unfortunately. I would have liked to have been.
Sorry.
I have been committed for the past 5 or 6 years to a veterans organization where I acted as president and vice president, and secretary, and presently the chaplain, so I backed out of that so that I would have the time to devote to something like our community MUD board. And I think it's a very worthwhile organization. I think it has a lot of potential to do positive things for all of our houses, to increase our property values, to get us back in the real estate market again where we need to be, instead of, oh, I don't want to buy a River Plantation that floods. Okay, well, that's kind of a big stump to get over when you're trying to buy a house in an area. So transparency and to get the storm drain fixed. So those are my 2 issues. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jeff Jones, and I'm, I guess, the lone resident of Mosswood. So I have lived in Mosswood for 14 years. I have lived in Montgomery County for 40 of my 47 years. So I grew up in Magnolia. I remember going through River Plantation as a small child. As a teenager, I worked with a painter that did many homes in the neighborhood. So I painted a few columns in my summer months as a teenager. So I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I'm very familiar with the county and the whys and wherefores of what has gone on in Montgomery County for many years. I used to go to the meetings quite often when Ms. Judge was on the board. Unfortunately, the times got moved, so I am a working professional. 4 o'clock is just not a good time for me because I don't get off work until 4. You know, I'm only 11 miles from here, is where my office is, up by the Conroe Airport. But you know, to leave at an earlier time is not always convenient for me. I look after a supply chain that spends several $100 million a year, so I would hope to think that I'm not keen to make hasty decisions. I just spent 10 days in Beijing negotiating contracts with at least a dozen different vendors for my company. So I am very well versed in making strategic decisions. I will say that a lot of things that Mr. Blackburn has said are really good things. And one of my problems is how does I, as a resident, know these good things are happening? Transparency is key. Information is even more important. Whether it's a newsletter, an updated website, an email, a Facebook page, it doesn't matter to me what it is, but information is key. You, me, we all pay taxes. We all want to know all these great things that are happening in the Mud Board. And honestly, these are all new to me. Mr. Franks, honestly, as an elected official, to hear the words, "We chose to keep this from you," honestly, scares the hell out of me. This is what is wrong with political officials in this country. They choose what they keep from the people that put them in office and pay for the funds that they spend. This cannot continue. It should not continue. One of the things I would like to see is online ability to pay your bill. I pay all of my bills online, but I have to mail a check or I have to drive to the Mud Board. This is 2018, and I'm still writing checks to the Mud Board. That's time for updates. It's time for new blood. It's time for fresh ideas. I would appreciate it if you would consider me as one of those fresh ideas.
Clap away. I'm Tim Goodman. I've lived in River Plantation for almost 5 years, and the reason I'm running is because I'd like to see some changes to policies and procedures that are going on. First and foremost is the time of the meeting. I think 4 o'clock in the afternoon is too difficult to get a crowd there. I've been to several meetings, and when there's 2, 3, 4 residents of 900 residents, that's not sufficient. That's not very good representation. Communication needs to be improved, whether it's posting the agenda before the meeting or keeping more copies of the minutes rather than just the last month. I think we need to be able to go back and see several minutes online. And as other people have said also, the electronic billing, I think, is a must-have. We are in the 21st century, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. I've got some questions that were emailed in to me. Everyone else here is welcome. Feel free to speak up and ask questions of the candidates. I'll just kind of kick it off with one for Mr. Blackburn. What is the 5-year plan for RPMUD? Why isn't this an agenda item for meetings, and how often is that updated if there is a plan?
Okay, I think people have to understand there's a role between the board and our management group. We do not physically manage the group. We're not allowed to under law. We oversee it. We do have a 5-year plan. Richard is always adjusting that. Some of the 5-year plan is fixing that drainage ditch. That's a big plan. We're also, some of the things that we're working with is with the government, the state, and that to help fund some of that because of the flooding. We're able to fund, which takes a long time to get things together. So those items that they're talking about are in the works. Obviously, we're redoing the sewer lines. We're looking at, we've just upgraded a lot of the areas in the sanitation plant. We also upgraded the areas on the pumps, the wells and that. We changed new motors and that. So it's sort of an evolving thing as we accomplish some things. Some of these items they're talking about, like electronic billing, that was already studied. It's not cost effective to do that because we don't have enough people that do electronic billing. We do take credit card if you call it in. But it becomes a big nightmare to try to do that when you only have 900 people if everybody used it. So there's some things, the hours you're talking about, the 4 o'clock, we went to 7 o'clock. That causes a hardship on the workers, and no more people came than at 4 o'clock. So I mean, some of these areas that you're talking about, as far as the updating on the website, we have a website. I think in the last 3 years we've had 170 people total look at the website. There are things on it. So there are things on there that's going on. Can we improve things? Yes. And that's part of the plan. Part of the 5-year plan is also working on a website, working on a little bit of better area to do it. A lot of those things are driven by other people. We tend to look at what we're trying to drive as keeping clean, safe water, keeping sanitation up, keeping all those areas, and I'll say that, you know, maybe the website, because we don't get much hits on it, is not necessarily a top priority, but it is a priority. Thank you.
Go ahead, Georgette.
Well, I live in a house that has a drainage that was done back when we first had the first flood probably. I've lived here probably 30 years. We've had Richard out probably over the last 10 years because it's an drainage easement that goes down the side of my house. There's a big drainage area in the back and one in the front. And I think it's one of the main ones for that whole area. And it's been sinking and sinking and sinking. So they did come in and try that lining. My concern is that it's already sinking again beside it. My concern is that we're not really doing this properly. We're not spending the money that needs to be spent on these storm drains that, I guess that's called storm drain. That's my concern. Are y'all concerned about that? That like we're piecemealing this?
I'll go ahead and answer about the storm drain. About the storm drain, we know the storm drains need to be replaced.
Mine has been replaced. I mean, the lining part.
The entire length of the entire creek will be replaced. All we're waiting for is the $500,000 to come from FEMA. FEMA has came in, estimated it to cost $500,000.
But
and we
I'm
filed the
talking about
paperwork.
the drainage easements that were put in back in the 70s that
Where
need
is
to be
your where
replaced.
is this easement
I'm on
you're
Augusta
talking?
Park, and it's behind my house. There's an easement, and there's one in the front and there's one in the back on drainage.
But it's not the big ditch that runs through the golf course and everything.
No, it's a drainage ditch. It's a pipe, and they did the blow up lining. But before that, for the last 10 years, they've been coming filling it in with dirt, filling it in with rock, and I'm like, keep explaining that's got to go somewhere. It's just
Have you called Richard lately, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
it's
think
been
that
ongoing for 10 years, and it seems like other people in the area are having that too, and that should have been a top priority. Even if we have to pay for it, we should be paying for it. But it's something that's so bad right now, it's scary. The electrical lines, it got into the electrical poles, the sinkhole, where my concern was that was going to come down, and then we would really have problems. But right now, seeing the rest of the sinkhole after they've already done that lining concerns me that it's not being properly done, or that it all needs to be done, or it's not going to work at all.
well, to answer your question, I don't know your
We don't know the
specifics,
specifics on it, so
but
it's hard.
to answer your one question, we do not skimp on money. We're not sitting there we try to save money by cutting expenses, but we don't. We just put in all the pumps that we put in on the wells are now water submersible.
And I understand
pumps.
the well part.
Well, but
it's
I'm
the
talking
other
about
that
even
hasn't
the
really
drainage in that. We're not we don't skimp on money, but everything has and I don't know the particulars about your house.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
You know, but
Well, that's just a concern I had, and I just, I feel like we need to make that a priority because this neighborhood is so old, and it is a problem. I know other people have had the same problem with these sinkholes.
Across
Well,
the street
there's-
from my house, and it's very close to your house, the same thing. But Richard was over there fixing it, and at the time he told me about the linings and
They're
things like that.
always very
And
good
Harvey
at
might have set
stopping
you guys back.
I'm not familiar with it. Richard would probably be familiar with it. But if Richard worked on it before, it is one of the easements we can work on, but we're limited to where we can work. Like, we can't work on private property. Can't do anything. If you got a problem in your yard, you're gonna have to fix it.
Well, I'm
Well, it's
sorry,
not
but
in
that
our
is
yard.
not
It's
in my.
in-
no,
Well,
we're
if
not
it's in the
saying that. He
easement.
was just being.
I'm saying it, but if Richard has worked on it before,
Richard has worked on it a year.
Within the last year, they came in and worked back there for, I don't know,
2
a
weeks.
month, 2 weeks, whatever.
it's
All well and good. Now there's another sinkhole in the same goddamn place.
just,
So Richard's probably done.
I
haven't
can
been
really
back.
empathize with you because I have the same sinkhole type problem.
Well, I
And-
think a lot of areas do, and that's been a concern.
Yeah.
And is Richard not communicating this back to the board, or
Yes,
is
he-
there
he
some
communi-
kind of?
He
I
we
can
get
see where
meetings.
mine goes because he brings in sand that they
Yeah.
scrape off the bottom that has golf balls in it and stuff, and they put it in a pile and it dries out, and then I complain about my sinkhole, and he brings the same sand back,
Yeah.
pours it in
It's
the
been that
top,
way for 10
and you can
years,
see
but
it coming out in the
he's
storm
filling
drain
up
in
the
the bottom.
sinkholes.
we did a lot of work behind his house, 2 years ago?
I never could
2.5
figure out
years.
why.
2.5 years ago, we spent $300,000, so
Sir?
we're
If
not
a
we're not
pipe was
skimping
leaking,
it
why didn't you
fixed.
pour sand in it? but then that's gonna clog it up.
It's gonna
Normally, we'll put a
rock.
liner,
They'll put a
hopefully we'll
liner
put a
in it.
liner in it first.
No, hopefully you didn't.
Okay. I don't know the
I don't know
particulars.
if they will.
Come by, I'll show it to you.
We'll have Richard, we'll give it.
I guess my concern is, I feel like Richard spends a whole lot of time going to and from all these houses, and his time could be better spent on something else, and our money could
Well,
be
Richard
spent.
could actually fix your problem without even bringing it before the board. He doesn't
Well,
have
why
to.
hadn't it been fixed
Well, I mean,
then? For 10 years? I mean, I think
Well, I mean,
that's long enough.
you said he's repaired it a couple of times, it just continues to erode away
Right.
probably.
It is not fixed if it keeps happening. To me, that's not fixed.
I don't consider putting rock and sand in a leaky pipe fixing it.
I guess I would just like to, I'm not here.
Expand this just a little bit. I
Yeah.
want to open the question a little bit more broadly instead of addressing.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
well,
should've-
we'll get with Richard on
So
her
my
problem.
clarification, what I would like to understand, because I'm not sure exactly, what governance does the board have over the drainage in the community?
The creek
Do you
that
have
runs,
governance over that
the
all?
creek that runs through the golf course only. No personal property, no street, once it gets into the sewer system.
Is that the ditches through the golf course?
No.
Is that-
Anything with the concrete brick, concrete ditches are RPMUD responsibility. Not the big ditch up in the front.
Okay.
That belongs to Texas Parks Department. The ditch that runs along up front and goes into Mosswood is Texas Parks Department now.
Okay.
The only thing the RPMUD has responsible for is the concrete concrete ditch that runs through the golf
So when
course.
you're playing the golf course, all the concrete ditches, you guys have governance over that, right?
We have that responsibility and 2 feet on either side.
I thought you did the parks too, the drainage.
Because I'm gonna expand this, I want to.
Don't you do the drainage on parks?
I live up on the Charleston course.
It's
okay?
private property.
On the Charleston.
The parks
course,
aren't.
it's pretty flat, there are none of those ditches.
RPCA.
There's none of those ditches up there where I'm talking about.
Pardon?
A
I
Charleston
live on
course.
the Charleston course, it's flat up there, it's a flat hilltop, there are minimal ditches, there's ditches, but there's swales, there's drainage, but it's pretty flat up there.
No, it's not MUD's responsibility.
I don't know, wait, just,
I'm not-
where are you talking about, sir? I'm not sure.
I live on the Charleston course,
Okay.
Which hole?
I live on number 7 Charleston.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask my question,
Okay, we'll wait.
so where I'm going with this is, if the drainage off of that area, you're saying the mud district has no governance over that?
Not, it's county on one side of 7 and golf course on
The reason I ask that question is because I have pictures during hardening of several inches of water flowing across big sections of that area up there that I'm concerned about as the drainage systems could evolve and develop in this community. Does the mud district have any governance over governing that development?
Not, I don't,
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
not the ditches.
If you're talking, I'm not sure what you're, if you're talking about ditches like in front of your home, that's the county.
What I'm saying is, I'm trying to say specifically as I can.
Okay.
Water flows off that hilltop now, goes everywhere when it rains
Right.
downhill. And I'll make it specific, I've seen plans and forecasts where there's a potential where a neighborhood could be built on the Charleston course. If that neighborhood's built and that water has to go somewhere, will MUD district govern any of that?
No.
No,
Will it have any ability to barrier water flowing off that division into our areas?
no, the contractor will have to do it.
No,
It's
that
considered
will go
private
through the
property.
county. The county would approve any ditching, any flood, everything. The MUD
No,
has
the
no
county
business.
would not. I've checked with
Let me
that.
ask you a question.
No, it
Okay,
won't.
so what I would like to know specifically from all the candidates on the board, how do you all feel about that? Is there any variation in your interpretation, Mr. Blackwell?
No, we're forbidden by law. You cannot work on private property.
I mean, I'm not familiar with the situation, but I for one would be more than willing to bring the county out there and meet on the spot. I mean,
Right.
in
I
Mosswood,
went to the county
in-
engineer's office.
right, in-
And I specifically talked to 3 people in there, the head guy, and I've got his card, I can't remember his name, it's been a while. And he specifically said, they cannot have, they will have no control if a developer comes in and builds. They build by the guidelines of the county, but they have nothing to do with the
right.
creating any
There's
type of
a
drainage.
code that they have to live by.
They have to follow the
And
code.
that's it.
But the county won't come in and supervise.
But if you look at, I live on Magnolia, and of course Stewart's Creek runs behind my house, And if you go down about just past Orangewood, where Stewart's Creek swerves around, the whole side just started caving away. And I don't know if you've ever been down there, but literally we watched about 12 feet of ground just wash away into the creek. And this has been going on for many years. I called the county. The county came out and they said, look, it's not necessarily the county's responsibility to maintain the creek, but we will take responsibility to contact the appropriate authorities. And inside of a week, they were out there and they were fixing the issue. So in some instances, it's not the county's responsibility, but if you talk to the county and you find out whose responsibility it is, and can they help you get in touch with that governing body or that responsible party. But yes, the county has a code. They can't change the code without it going before the commissioner's court. So it's.
But I just want to make it clear that my concern was, where does water go if something was developed out there? And they have no control over that.
And you know, you talk about next door,
yeah.
So there's a lot of people talking about, oh, this guy's running for commissioner, he's going to do this for flooding. No, they're not. The guy that's spewing he's going to do all this for flooding is just spewing because the county in 1982, I believe it was, we ran a referendum to create the Montgomery County Flood Control District. That was defeated at the polls. So the county does not have a flood control district. The commissioner is in charge of maintaining the creeks and the right-of-ways and the drainage, but there is no upper-level governing body in the county that controls flooding. That was defeated by the voters back when I was unable to vote. I'll say that. But at the same time, the county will help with finding the right people, getting you in touch with the right people. I mean, it was Texas Corps of Engineers that came out, that did an outstanding job on the creek because it was their responsibility, it wasn't the county's.
My turn? I'm confused. We're talking about you guys don't touch the parks that are out here at all.
Speak up. We're getting a mic.
Huh?
They got to hear you in the back.
Saying that the mud doesn't touch the parks out there, but they are not private property. They're part of the CIA.
It's still considered private.
It's a different body.
Now, wait a minute. I know what I'm talking about. Raymond Ramirez came out and told me he put that pipe under that road, the road I live on, which is a park, and he told me he put it there. And then he told me in the park there's another one. He said, well, we didn't put this part in there. Okay, now the county has one road that goes this way. Our park is a private road that belongs to the CIA, so they don't do it. So who's responsible?
You're talking about the parks in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're talking about the circle parks.
Yeah, that's what you want to call them, circle, semicircle, whatever.
Parks with a swimming pool and all
Parks
that.
where the kids play or parks where you...
No,
The parks we live on.
No, we don't do any
cul-de-sacs.
They're not cul-de-sacs, they're parks. The county won't even do our roads.
No, the county won't do the roads because they're not considered.
Well, I
part of
don't
the
think that
county.
has anything to do with the mud.
Well, that doesn't
But
have
that's
anything
not
to
my
do with it.
question. My question, if you guys don't do it and the county doesn't do it, then who does?
What are they doing?
I don't know.
Takes care of the flood control, the drain pipes and
So
stuff.
if it's a private
And
maintained...
Ramirez told me he put the pipes under the road.
If they're under the road, they're part of the sewer system, then we maintain them.
Okay, well, that's where it's come from. So that's draining through your sewer system?
Stormwater? I don't know.
I
Yeah,
you're-
stormwater
I-
drains
I-
through the sewer system.
I don't know
When you
either.
say these things, I don't know, now you want us to make some sort of value judgment.
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
know
trying
where
to
your
do that. I'm
house
just trying to clarify who we talk to if
If
we
it's on
have a
private
problem.
property, it would be whoever owns the property. If it's something that the MUD has put in and is part of our stormwater drainage, then we will maintain it like we have been maintaining and lining it.
I'm still confused, but I'll find it later. But let me ask one other thing, going back to the first question. You guys said you researched doing electric billing, e-billing or something. Is it possible to at least bill people that way? Because I've had to call the MUD office at least 4 times in the last year because I didn't get a bill. They send them on those little papers.
Yep.
And they end up in my neighbor's mailbox or in a trash or something, and I don't get them, so I've had to call. I try to call, you have to call like the 10th of the month so I can get the bill done. But is there any way we could get an email or something if we give them our email? I mean, Just send us an email, tell me how much it is.
We don't have the ability to do that, Jeff.
You can't do that. I can pay you by telling my bank to send you X amount of dollars at a certain time, and that's the way I do it. I don't
That's
write a
the way a
check.
lot of people do it.
And they
Well,
will do
the
that.
bank is mailing a check on your behalf.
Yes, they are. I know what it looks like.
And to my point on the electronic billing, I've been to flea markets where people have the ability to take a credit card at the flea market. I mean,
The Bud
We can
District
take a
has the
credit
ability to take a credit card.
But you're gonna get
I
charged
can
a fee.
create a website right now and sell things through PayPal and through
but,
you know,
yeah.
when was the survey done as far as the economics of being able to pay online?
Last year.
Excuse me.
And how many firms were consulted? You know, these are the questions, you know, I don't want.
We had more than one
One
firm. The
bid.
problem is, in order not to be paying, which increases your water bill, you have to have so many people participating.
Well, all I was trying to find out if we could get the bill, because mine gets lost. Or put it on a bigger
I think
paper.
To answer your question, Tom,
It's a little bit more
the billing,
complicated.
it is, and it's one of those things where maybe if you logged online and were able to see your account and see your,
Well,
not
even-
really pay, because I think the payment is fine the way it is right now.
I can pay
You're
mine
paying
that way. I don't
electronically
have-
through
I
your
can do that.
bank.
You can pay
but
electronic
we
through
can't
your
go
bank.
I do.
online, we have nothing electronic
43
to log
years.
into to say, here's my account, this is what I owe and this is what I paid.
Yeah, that's the part I'm trying to get to. I don't,
I'll admit, I pay a lot of my bills with my credit card because I build points on that credit card, and then I turn around and pay it. I don't want to pay all of my bills out of my bank account.
Okay, let's,
Just go on.
Let's go on to the next
They
one.
will
Yeah, I'm
take
not
credit
gonna
cards.
give
Let's move
somebody,
on.
I'm not gonna give somebody my credit
We're
card
not
number.
gonna talk issues
We're not gonna
Right.
here unless
Yeah.
it's something
Electronic
about
billing at
what
this
they're gonna do to
Yeah.
fix those issues and what their plans are. You have another question?
Well, just for each individual person, if they could just tell me what's your top 2 priorities for the next, and why for your top number 1.
No,
that
don't
you
limit
wanna
it to
accomplish.
one. Mine would probably be the document storage, the document retention, because even though some of those documents were 40 years old, they can still be scanned. They can still be stored. Cloud storage is cheap. I mean, we've probably got, we went to cloud storage in my office 7 years ago. We don't have any paper within the last 7 years in our office. The only reason we don't have anything prior to 7 years on the cloud is because I didn't want to pay somebody to sit there and scan
Well,
it.
that's the problem. right
Okay,
now.
well, okay,
Send
that's
somebody
fine.
out and pay them to do it.
That's fine,
Yeah.
okay? But why aren't you doing it now? You have to eventually start somewhere. You have to pick a point and start. You can't just say, that's the way we've always
What's
done
the
it.
next point?
Okay. My next point is, we've got to have communication. So, you know, everybody's got to work together. Okay? Everybody in this community.
I think that circles everything up in the electronic piece of it, along with the electronic billing and everything, just getting into the 20th century.
Right.
Thank you.
So for my major projects is the drainage, the drainage that we have going on, the resurfacing of the stormwater.
talking because I can see your lips.
Okay, I'm sorry. My projects, I don't like my phone. My projects, what I'd like to see and what we're working on is the drainage, that we've got the sewer line drainage, the stormwater drainage that we're working on. We're also working on some ways to ensure that we don't ever have to go in the Lone Star area. I think that also some of these minor areas that are something that's important, obviously, to the community is to upgrade our website. I understand that, to get a little bit better. The notes are there, the minutes are there. People can look at the minutes. There's been a complaint that there's not 2 or 3 months worth of minutes. I understand that, and we can work on doing that. Our website is a very simple website, and we can upgrade that. So that's one of the things. To me, it's more of the sanitation plant, the sewer plants, the stormwater, the wells, redundancy, and that aspect of it. The getting things on the cloud is a very nice thing to happen. Electronic billing is a nice thing to happen, except there's a security reason on that. There's a problem because in order for people to get into our computer to look at their bill, there is some areas that we'd have to outsource all that, which we have looked at, and the cost just didn't warrant what's going on. We only have about 900 people that are billing anyway, a little bit less now after the flood. So those are the areas that I'm looking at, and that's what I'm trying to stay on the board for.
So who's responsible for checking the email address that's on your website?
Say again?
The email address that's on the website? Who does that email address go to? Who checks that?
Richard or Taylor?
Okay.
True. My two priorities are, one of them, the agree with Ed, is on the ditches, being sure that we stay on top of FEMA to get this funds in, so we
You know, I can't vote for you if I can't hear you.
the drainage ditches, be sure we're gonna stay on top of FEMA to be sure we get the $500,000 so that we don't have to spend our money for it. And the other thing is move forward with the project on well 2, replacing the well. The well 2 is on its last leg, and we need to follow up and be sure we get well 2 in. So if we do run into a problem where one of the wells shut down, we got a way of getting water to the neighborhood.
I explained my two priorities previously, but I will repeat them. Number one is more openness and transparency in what takes place at the MUD meetings so that you're all aware. So we're up to date, everybody knows what is happening, and we can make decisions from there as more as a community instead of just as a few individuals. I do place a high priority, as do you, on sinkholes and the storm drain, although I have fun with the sinkholes. I trap, and even though I've only been here 6 years, I've trapped over 70 skunks, raccoons, possums, armadillos, and one red fox.
And one cat.
And one cat. I trap them alive, and then I go over by Caney Creek and I release them over there where there's a water source and there's no residential area. So I may end up having to stop trapping if all the sinkholes are filled in, but I can appreciate what you're saying. And any time that the MUD district has underground piping or under your park piping and it's causing a problem, they should be held responsible for that, to maintain it, to fix it in a timely manner. We're here, oh, we're going to get $500,000 from FEMA. The hurricane was just 8 months ago. The storm drain has been deteriorating for the last 30 years. So it should have been fixed 30 years ago as it started deteriorating, not now, and we shouldn't have to wait for FEMA's money. If FEMA wants to reimburse us for some of that expense, hallelujah, God bless FEMA. But there's no excuse for it taking this long and getting in that bad a shape. I'm sorry. So that would be a high priority.
Can I just say one thing on the drainage? The MUD district did not have the drains all the time. There was, and I think it was 5 or 6, or maybe a little longer, that was transferred over, that we had to absorb the drains. So the last 30 years, we've not been responsible for the creeks and the drains and the concrete going through it. It was transferred over to us like all government agencies. The guys up top send it down to the little guys.
I'm not talking storm drain. I'll get with you later on.
Okay.
So I don't want to steal all the topics that they've already said, so I'll do my best to come up with a couple of new topics. And one of my biggest topics is something that I do a lot at work, and that's communication. As I said earlier, Mr. Blackburn, you conveyed today many wonderful things that the board has done. The problem is I, as a resident of 14 years, know absolutely anything about what you have done because the board has not done a good enough job of informing the people that pay for those projects. Whether it be a newsletter, or it be an email, or it be an updated website, communication as to where your money is going is vital. Because none of us like writing that check every year to the county to pay those taxes. I just wrote mine for government. The last thing I want to do is hear about where my money's going, but I know where it goes from the federal government. I'd like to know where my local money is going. And I guess the other big thing, I guess, it does go back to just that community mindedness. So not everybody can make it to those meetings. You know, what are we doing to maybe every quarter, every 6 months, reach out to the community and say, look, this is when the meetings are. Can we make an adjustment to get more people? Try and draw more people into those meetings. A lot of people don't go to the meetings for different reasons. We got to find out what those reasons are, because the only way we're going to make this better is through community involvement. I saw this with Harvey. I mean, my home wasn't damaged, thank God. I live very high up, but I spent 2 wonderful days off of Brandon Road helping a wonderful family, and I saw the community pull together. And I feel that the best way to run this MUD board is to get the community involved in those meetings. And as a MUD board member, it is my duty to do my best to engage you to come to those meetings. What do I need to do to have you come and engage me so that I can make the better decisions, so that I can inform you of what decisions we have made? I think those are, aside from the others, those are my 2 big.
That tags into one of the questions that were emailed in very closely, why there was no notices sent out about this election.
Tim
Why-
didn't get
Tim
that.
hadn't said his too.
I know. You just, it's a, why,
Patiently
I'm not
waiting.
asking a question. I'm just adding on to what he said about the, why was it not on the website? Why weren't its bills, noted that, hey, we're having an election? This thing was, there's all these elections go and no one, so thank you for that. We can address that later, but I just wanted to bring that up since it was part of his topic. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. Communication, I know it sounds like a broken record, but obviously there's a communication issue with the MUD board to the community, and I want better communication and be much more transparent. Like Mike was saying, when is the election? Heck, when are the meetings every month? Let's announce the meetings and not try to keep it a secret. Let's put out a sign or something somewhere in the neighborhood so that people can see that there's going to be a meeting coming up. That and doing everything I can to improve the drainage so that the next time Harvey comes, we've at least done everything we can do as a community to protect the houses of our people.
Question?
She had a question earlier.
I was just gonna make a point earlier, if someone's interested in what's going on at the water board meetings, they're all posted and all kept in the office, they have to be to public records, so anybody can go up there and read it.
Yes, ma'am. My problem is the office is open from 8 to 4, and I work 6 to 4 every day, Monday through Friday. So it's impossible for me.
For me.
I rely on websites, and honestly, a website that has no value to it, of course I have no traffic to it. I mean, I have websites I go to every day, but because I get value from those websites. You have a website with no traffic, usually it means there's nothing there for them to see, so they don't come back. Or they don't tell others
the
about
board
it.
members of the website. Any of you guys get on there, you need help with the website, I do lots of websites, so just give me a ring.
I mean, I create a Facebook page or something. I mean, just
And everybody else.
you can set Facebook pages up to where nobody can comment. So you can use Facebook purely as an outgoing source. You can do that. You can control
Yeah, go ahead.
comments.
So I wanted to, one of the questions, this is something I learned when you guys mentioned. You mentioned there's nearly $2 million in the bank account in reserves right now. To me, that's a pile of money, which is great. That's awesome that we have that war chest to call on. But I want to tie it back to kind of the comments that were made waiting on FEMA money to repair the ditches. If we've got a commitment from FEMA,
We don't have a.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Yeah, FEMA has approved all the paperwork. We're waiting for a commitment. As soon as we get the commitment, we'll start on it.
So my question then is this $2 million, I'm gonna ask it instead of to the existing board members. I'm gonna open it up to all the candidates. Maybe you'd like me to learn that there's a $2 million.
Yeah.
What would be your intention to do with this $2 million based on what you know about what the board, or the MUD board's governance is?
Well, 1.5 million of it,
Yeah. So I'd like to hear what everybody thinks about that.
I mean, my first question is that $2 million making us money?
yes.
I don't know that. I don't.
And you as a taxpayer and me as a taxpayer, how come I don't know and what is that money earning on a repetitive basis?
Well, I think
And,
he did say, to your
all
point,
in
I think
C-
he did say nobody wants it, which I'm a banker, so I
It's in
do
CDs.
understand that. Because, I mean, it is hard, FDIC insured and
Yeah.
some things like that, so I can understand that. It's not gonna earn a lot. I don't think
No, but
anyway.
I don't know what your name is, but to his point, the point is, are we gonna wait for another hurricane and now we've got more damage? Or are we gonna just sit here and wait for FEMA to make their decision? And then, because we've waited, now it may be too late for the next hurricane that comes in this year, because we've waited.
Or if it needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's not that we're not fixing things, we are fixing things that need to be fixed. What we're trying to do is never have to go to bond, never had to go and get a bond to do things. To put a well in is about $2 million. We also are required by law to have at least 6 months operating capital in the bank. So there are some restrictions that we
So
have.
what
But he
would
said
that
the
be?
estimate was $500,000.
I understand,
That's
and
what FEMA-
right
And
now we're
you've got
spending,
$2 million in
we're
the
right now
bank.
spending money.
1.5 is going to our new well.
The thing is, I think that the board has been trying to be very prudent with the money. Not that we're trying to be stingy with the money, but a lot of these things that people are thinking, the drainage is not causing the flooding. If everybody would just stop to think, the drainage does not cause the flooding. It's not until they open up the dam and we flood up the San Jacinto River that our water won't flow out that we get the flooding.
Well, I
I'm not saying
guarantee
that the ditches don't need repaired. I'm not saying any of that stuff. But everybody is thinking that that ditch caused the flood is not really right. The ditch didn't cause the
I'm
flood.
not saying the ditch did, I'm thinking my own personal, what I know, and my sinkhole in the back, and the drainage that goes there to the, I'm not sure where it goes, but it's all over the subdivision. It's a drainage pipe, and,
But you do agree, Ed, if water won't flow off of a flat property and you don't maintain, that's why I asked my question about the governance. If you don't govern and maintain drainage on flat areas,
But we're not, we don't have, that's not our authority. We have authority and we don't have authority. We're a government agency.
so
But you
I'm
have a
just trying to
ditch.
ask your comment
Huh?
about the ditches didn't cause the flooding.
I'm just saying that
But
the,
you have a large ditch that during Harvey and even this last rain, that did not flow because there was blockage. There were trees in it and all kinds of things inside there. And so the water could not flow out, which causes homes to flood.
What ditch are you
Regardless of where the water's coming from, that ditch is not flowing.
What ditch are you
like it
talking
should
about?
be. The one at the back on the golf course.
There's no trees growing over there, I know that.
There
We
are
clean it twice a year.
limbs and all kinds of things back there.
We clean it twice a year.
I've asked for them to clean it out, some of that stuff is still there.
It is.
well, I mean, I don't want to go into a flood thing because
It's been
heaven
over years.
forbid,
It's
River Plantation has a
Speculation.
flooding problem. And it gets worse and worse every year. And we could dig a ditch down to China and we still have a flooding problem. They need to clean the San Jacinto River out. They've
Yes, they
never
do.
done that. So there's a lot of things that we can go into and argue about and say, well, it'd be great to do. But really what we're trying to say is the mud board has certain limitations that it can do. We have built up a war chest so that we don't have to do bonds, we don't have to pay interest to somebody else, and we do get some interest. We're limited on what we can do where we can put our money at. We can't go put it in stocks and bonds. We have to put it in very secure things. We're limited what we have to do as far as the government, because we are a government agency. We're not a CIA. We're not just individuals out there. We have very strict rules that we have to go through. Is there a lot of things we could do? This subdivision is like an old car. You fix and repair it daily. And there are areas that we have to work on. There's areas that we're looking at.
So you're about to build another well? I didn't know anything about that.
No, we're not building another well.
Well, he just said the 1.5
Drill
is
well,
going to
we don't
another
build
well.
it, we drill a well.
We would, it'd be, if well to
So then
go,
your war chest
No, what
goes
we're
from
saying is-
2 million to 500,000 basically.
well, what we're saying is that well two was designated as a well that is slowly decaying. We may have to go in and drill another well right next to it. It can cost up to so much money. We have not gotten to that point, and we're still continually putting money up. We can obviously all go put a bond out anytime we want, and then the district can pay interest on it. We're trying not to do that.
Well, it seems like to me it would be better, I mean, we've got to maintain what we have, and we've got to make the whole subdivision right, or we're gonna just not get anywhere. We're always gonna be behind and.
But the well hasn't failed. The
And
well
not
is
even talking the
producing well.
There's just lots of maintenance things in an old subdivision, like these drainage.
Some of the drainage is county drainage, some of the drainage is private drainage, and some of the drainage is our drainage.
I'm not
Well, I don't know,
education.
I don't know what drainage, I don't know
your-
where we're talking about. It could be the county, it could be private,
I
it
can tell
could
you
be
it's
ours.
not, because Richard Ramirez has gone in and taken care of, he
Okay.
thought he took care of it.
Well, then,
And it's,
okay,
so I guarantee you it is not the county.
Okay.
It is,
then it's areas that we've worked out and tried to fix. I mean, I am not the operational person. The board does not, the
So you
board,
don't have anything over the operational part?
we control it. We manage it. We do not, we are not the person that is charged, nor can we run the district. We oversee the district.
All we do is oversee and approve what
That's
Richard
right.
recommends.
We have the ability to say yes or no. We have the ability to
That's it.
control
Well,
money.
who manages it then?
Richard.
So one person.
And who
What happens
manages
if Richard dies or
Pardon?
gets hit by a car?
Who
We have-
manages Richard?
Richard reports to the board.
Okay, so you
Well,
manage Richard.
Yeah, but we don't tell him what, we don't actually tell him what to do.
Oh, really?
Richard brings his suggestions to him, so we either tell him yes or no.
So you can hire or fire Richard then?
That's right.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
So Richard is gonna pretty much go by what the board tells him
Yeah,
to do.
but
I would if I were
we
Richard.
can make recommendations to Richard, but Richard, like, we will inform Richard of what you're telling us tonight.
Okay.
But
Listen.
Richard will have to go out and look at it and then come back to us and tell us what he wants to do, and we'll tell him yes or no.
The board is to be a separate entity away from the man.
I
if you're-
understand that.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is, you're an accountant. You could be our accountant.
Right.
Jack
Right.
is an engineer. He can't sign anything.
Right. I am in the business world.
I understand. So there's a separation, and it's
Right.
noted.
It's a
So-
conflict.
Richard has the ability to manage the district. He comes in and gives us recommendations. We evaluate the recommendations.
Right.
Normally,
I understand.
we go from there.
I understand.
So it's not that I'm gonna go out there and tell Richard, you've gotta fix this drainage.
We don't go looking for problems, then come back and tell Richard, go fix this. We'll suggest to Richard, he go look, and then it's up to
I
Richard.
understand. That's totally it.
Okay?
I get it.
And Richard does a hell of a job. I mean, he's on top of everything.
It took him 10 years to do that.
Is there a way
That's
we
pretty
can
on top.
contact the San Jacinto River Authority or somebody, the county, to dredge out Stewart's Creek? It's so full of debris and bushes and so high the water does not flow.
And San Jacinto River aside, all the flooding aside, forget about that, that happens, we have events, we know that it's gonna happen in RP.
Yeah.
Just the regular drainage and what Steve was getting back to about Charleston. When I bought my house 16 years ago, I had a backhoe and I had to dig all the way, I had a lake on my back porch every time it rained. I dug that all out, I made the drain go around. The drainage is in the front of my house. I have a big drain. It's perfect. 16 years, it's been beautiful. I got it going around the side. It goes out the back. If they build a house behind me on Charleston, I'm done. It's coming right in my house. That, and then I don't think we've addressed the question, is the mud board has nothing to say. Okay.
It will be up to
We have no authority.
It'll be up to the contractor and the county to
And the
design,
county's-
the drainage,
So-
if it ever gets built.
Believe it or not, what you're talking about is happening today in this brand-new subdivision
Oh,
on
it's
the Boy
happening.
Scout.
It's happening
Yeah,
all
I
over.
know.
The brand-new
Exactly what
homes
you're
that they're
talking
building in
about.
the Boy Scouts, because they got two different developers, and one developer comes
Yeah.
in and builds a house like this,
Yeah.
and immediately started flooding the house, and these homes are 6 months old.
I mean, it's-
And the county will
And
approve
that's
that.
in the city.
The
That's not
county will
even in
approve
the
that, but
county.
I was
The city
approving-
approved it.
I was part of the approval process for RP,
Yeah.
and they built that house up on the hill over there.
But
And they can
yeah,
build them on the hill anywhere.
Stuff
you know?
like that, it falls outside the scope.
RP MUD doesn't have anything to do with it. That's-
RP MUD has
No,
nothing to
I
do
would
with
I
it.
would
Okay.
definitely
That's-
concur. That's not even, the county has code and that's it.
Okay. Next, anybody else?
Need a code
Not, I'll
book.
go to the sheets here.
You can get one from the county, you can get a code book.
Any other
Yeah,
boards you
code
guys sit
breaker.
on? Is anyone, can you guys name any other boards that you actively sit on? Any of the candidates?
I think in the county or in,
Anywhere, here.
I'm president of Fairway Village Association.
I'm the chairperson for Vietnam Veterans of America, incarcerated veterans.
Bless you, sir.
And I'm on the board of directors of the Illuminating Engineering Society in Houston.
That's it. There was one here that asked Mr. Blackburn, what engineering company do you use for the club and what engineering company does RP MUD use?
Well, I don't even know what that pertains to. The engineering for the RPMUD is we use Blau Engineering.
Yeah, I don't either, okay. Since, let's see, can you, Tommy, probably this was, I think was directed toward you, could you explain the interconnect between RPMUD and East Plantation Mud, and how many times that's been used, or really either one of them?
You're talking about the water connection between them?
It's just an email.
It's two separate divisions. We're a municipal utility district, they're just a,
I'll use the
Right.
they're two separate, the only connection we have is our tanks are connected to their tanks, so that if, in case of emergency, we can pull water from them or they can pull water from us. The only time I know it's ever been done was Hurricane Ike. Well 2 went down. Well 2, when Ike hit in 98, probably wasn't flooding, it was probably, we went almost 16, 17 days over where well 2 is with no electricity. Generators were turned on. After 8 days, the generators blew up. So Richard got with the EP people and they opened the valve and we pulled water from East Plantation's tank for 3 days. At the end of that 3 days, it was determined that their tank was too low to support RP and East Plantation. They made plans to cut it off the next day about 9 o'clock. And God forsake, electricity came on that night. So we didn't have, so RP didn't lose any water. But EP did bail us out because all the all the gasoline we used from the diesel we used for the generators came from East Plantation. They had a reserve and they sold it to us. We didn't have a reserve. They just happened to, we don't know why, they don't know why they had that reserve. They had it. Some company called and told them they had paid for it and it had never been delivered. At that time they didn't know they had never taken delivery on it. But basically, if their tanks go out, they can pull from us by opening up the valve. If our tanks go out, we can pull from them.
But not for long periods of time.
Not for long periods of time.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
The balancing system, what has to happen, if our water system drops below 20 pounds, then we're boiling water. The system's contaminated. So when we open up the valves, we can support East Plantation much better than they can support us. Their wells aren't quite, their wells pump about 800 gallons a minute. So they've got, now with the 2 wells, they've got 1,600. We've got about 2,600 gallons we can pump a minute. But, so there's a balancing act that goes on, and the reason that they had to stop, because they were getting down, that they were going to get below the 20 pounds,
Yeah.
so they were going to cut us off. So it's not like you just go turn the valve on. It's a very balancing act, because if their pressure drops or our pressure drops, then we're into a problem of boiling water and a lot of other things, and recertifying the whole systems. So that's why they were going to cut it off.
But today we probably wouldn't have that problem because we got well 2 and we got well 3, and both are equipped with generators. At that time, in 98, well 2 was pumping water to well 3 was pumping water to well 2. There was no processing over at well 2 at all, well 3 at all. So we didn't have any way of putting generators over there.
Okay, switching gears to some of the linings and things that were planned. I've talked with Richard Ramirez about some of the linings that you guys had planned to reline all of the pipes and drainage and everything in RP, and then we had already had that money ready to go.
No, there was no.
Well, let me finish first, and then then you can tell me if it was right or wrong. This just comes from him. He said you guys did the good thing, had that money ready to start this project, and then we had Harvey hit, and then that money was readily available to fix the pumps and everything that Harvey damaged, and then we got reimbursed for insurance on that money. Now are we ready to start lining?
They have been lining pumps, been lining the pipes for probably the last 2 months. It's those big white trucks you see out here.
Okay, all right, that's,
okay.
Yeah.
We did have the money to pay for that. We're paying for it in advance. It was at $10 to be taken away. Your sewer bill will go back to the original.
I'm happy to pay the additional additional $10 a month.
Believe me, it's
if
gonna
we
save,
just get it.
it's gonna save us a lot of money. It's a $500,000 expenditure. We're paying 300,000, East Plantation's paying 2. They have to share in the common, what they call the common lines. There's some lines that, all of their sewage drains into our sewer, or into our sewer tank. But there's a couple of lines that they use exclusively, so they're paying for those. For those of you that didn't know, they actually own 37.5% of our sewer plant. So it's a shared expense on anything that goes on the sewer plant, they pay a portion of it. And they will pay 37.5% of the ditch relining.
Can I ask one, this has to do with the lining. What made y'all decide to go with the linings instead of?
Last summer, we spent close to what, $700,000 repairing break.
Well, I mean, the alternative would be to dig everything up and which is not a cost-effective way, because some of them are very deep, or it's very cost-effective. They put these liners in, and actually, we're concentrating on the concrete pipes and some of the other pipes. Some of our pipes are very good, and they're not going to be a problem. Once the lining gets in, it's actually stronger. It's better for shifting than that, and it's probably, and I will say this, and everybody's going to go look it up and tell me I'm wrong, but it's probably 1/10 of the cost to reline compared to digging up and trying to replace. Plus,
Is it effective?
yes.
I mean, long-term?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's yes.
The outside pipe can crack, and that lining won't crack.
That lining should never wear out.
And just so you know, to line an 8-inch pipe, it's $26 a foot.
I think he probably told me that when he
And
came.
we've got
Showed us
pipes
the
8
line.
inches all the way to 26 inches. And it gets costly. As the pipe gets bigger, it costs more. And it's a real 8-inch pipe probably, when the lining's through, it's probably ends up being a 7.5 instead of
Well, I'm
an 8
gonna
inch.
invite y'all over to
But it's
see the
smooth,
lining.
it's smooth out, and it'll flow a lot better. And it usually doesn't crack. If you want to see what it looks like, Richard's got some of it up at the,
Oh, I've seen
Or
it,
district.
because they put it in.
yeah, it's,
Mike, last round here.
How do we get to vote? I know it's on the 5th of May, I don't know where it is or.
Here.
and be sure you vote. This election's cost us $11,000. You don't get to vote for free. It costs the district $11,000 to have this
Early
election.
voting starts April 23rd at the Montgomery County Election Central.
That's your oath.
Huh?
That's your oath.
So this is about the condition and the status of what the MUD district is today. We talked about the wells, the potential need. You got a well number 2 that's failing,
It's failing, yeah.
possibly failing. You may have to build a well number 3, a drill well number.
No, well, no,
No,
we already have a well 3.
Three's in and running.
3's in and running.
So a potential well replace number 2. You talked about lining these all these sewer lines with this, all that's great stuff. How does that position us for the future? Does that preserve the capacity that we have for RP today plus future expansion? Or is that just designed to accommodate the existing infrastructure as it exists today?
It's designed to help us in the future. The so-called addition that everybody says is going to be, they think is going to be built over where the Charleston Golf Course is. We have the facilities now to handle all of that. We will not have to enlarge
So
the
the
plant.
infrastructure is in place to handle a new development in here.
And the plant, the sewer plant's only running, what, 60%?
No, our sewer plant runs 47%.
47%.
Why did y'all feel that was necessary
What's that?
to accommodate for the new development?
The
You know,
sewer-
the sewer plant was put in long before anybody on the board was on, and when they built it, they just built it that way.
The
I
sewer plant
have
was
no
built,
idea.
what, 40 years ago?
The sewer lines are in there. I mean, they're in there because they're servicing the homes that are there. I mean, they're not going to build new ones. We're not putting in bigger ones. We're just repairing the ones that are there.
The tank was built later, recently, more recently.
Yeah, well 3
That
was,
was to
well 3
support
was
more
completed in 2000.
Now, what everybody keeps talking about, we have a water treatment plant at well 3. In order to treat the water, we treat it with chlorine, then the water has to sit for 30 minutes, a minimum of 30 minutes, before it can be put into the water system. So that's why you have the areas of tanks in order to process that water. So you'll notice that every well that has a tank or area will be something that can process the water. So that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing, we're not making a storage tank to store water, to supply water to someplace. We're having that tank there to fulfill the law, to have that water sit for at least 30 minutes after we chlorinate it before it can be put into the water system. So it's a processing, it's really a water treatment plant which has different sections to it. One's a chlorinator and one's a holding tank, so that we meet the requirements of the law. All this is very strictly controlled. Your water is very strictly controlled. It's not just we can get up in the morning and, you know, decide, make a new rule up. It's very strict controlled, and so those are the areas that's in there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
To Mr. Frank, since you said this election cost $11,000, what happens if there's a tie or a runoff?
Well, I don't think there will be.
There's 7 people.
You're voting for 3 people.
There's 7 people running.
We've never had it, I guess we'd have to have a runoff. I don't know.
Well, no
We've
one has
never
to,
had
no
it.
one has to win by a majority, and they just
That's
need one more
correct.
vote.
That's
So
correct. But there's always a
well, then
possibility.
we'd have a runoff.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to know.
I mean, I don't know. I've never.
The biggest drawback for this election this year is, the only thing that's being held here is the water board and Commissioner Precinct 2, that's it. So there's nothing to really,
We share, in other words, what he's trying to say is that the government always makes everybody
Yeah.
share.
I'm
So we
surprised
are
it's
a government
being held
entity,
here.
so we have to have voting machines, they have to be calibrated, they have to be, you know, all the rules. So we try to share with other people, and obviously, the more people you're sharing with, the better it is in life.
there's nothing going
So
on here
that's
I
except
guess this is an ignorant
nothing this
question
year
on my
here except
part.
the water
Has it
board
not
and-
been that way in the past?
Precinct 2.
Yes, we've shared, but it's been a larger area,
Yeah, one year it was held someplace else.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
But
over
it's
in the Woodlands.
he's just meaning is, what we want everybody is come vote. And a lot of people are get motivated by money. So if you don't want to, we spent a lot of money so everybody can come vote.
We don't
Come
have
vote.
I mean, we don't,
When was the last time we spent that money and actually had a vote for?
4 years
members on this
ago.
board? 4 years ago?
last year,
And the
nobody
time
ran.
before that,
Okay, so we're spending this every time.
No, 8 years ago.
well, 4
No,
years
4 years
ago,
ago.
8 years,
4
years ago,
4
4 years ago. Every time Tommy and I do it, we get everybody
2 years
riled up. So
ago,
they-
2 years
they-
ago,
we go
nobody
vote.
ran, so the 2 people whose term was up just stayed in office. Nobody runs.
So you mentioned that you guys got on 8 years ago because there was some turmoil. What was all that about? That usually spurs more. We've seen it was there something that spurred you guys to want to jump on the board? And
I don't know, somebody just called me and asked me to run. I don't even remember who it was.
Jeff, I think.
No, it was the first.
Okay.
Yes, it was you.
Not me.
Yeah, you did.
That bloke that came over to our house.
Yeah. Good move.
Are y'all concerned at all, about Richard being the only person
Yes,
that knows?
we are concerned about that, and we have charged him with,
Finding
and he's
somebody.
working, getting a person to come in. But
Does
they,
East Plantation have a Richard?
No, we do.
we maintain, we help
them
maintain their
and
area.
they pay, and believe me, they pay dearly. The problem is Richard has been looking for people, and you just can't find qualified people. And it's a dying, his particular job type is a dying industry.
But it's not
It's-
insurmountable. We have a couple candidates that we're looking
Yeah.
at, and that's the charge to get going on, to bring in another Class C person.
So that would probably be another thing that these board members would have to evaluate, is that next person who's going to take over. Because I know Richard's not too far from retirement.
No, he's getting
So-
close,
Well, but if he wants to retire.
if he wants
My
to
wife's been
retire.
telling me I need to retire too for the last 6 years, and I'm not retired yet, so.
I just wished I could afford to retire.
Me too.
It's not
Well,
what it's built up to, you never get a
Thank
day
you,
off.
everybody.
But I'd like to make a statement.
One more
I
statement.
will say that Richard Ramirez during Harvey did a great job at communicating with the board, the
Richard's a great guy.
RPCIA board. He let us know when 2 was failing, when he was having to go to 3. So he did do a great job in doing that. And he is always responsive whenever we
He is
do
very
call.
responsive. Oh,
So I'd like, you know,
That's why I worry
that's
about
a
the
good thing.
retirement. He's the one that told me himself.
So I guess
I'm
that's
thinking
one
I'm
of our
getting there.
pitfalls in Mosswood, because we don't get those communications. So, I mean,
Well,
we're
you
only
don't have-
100 homes.
You don't have
but-
an HOA. I think you used to, but you
I
don't.
mean, we're only 100 homes, but we don't get those communications, you know.
We don't need it.
Well, this is good communication right here that we had. I wish we'd had a larger group, but maybe we can grow something out of this. Maybe we get a little more going, get folks involved with the mud.
And I want to add, as a resident, thank all of you guys for
Yep.
the commitment that you've done to come over here tonight. I know this was kind of maybe ad hoc thrown together. I saw it online. I'm glad to come out and learn from you.
So-
And I appreciate all of you individuals spending the time to come out and talk to us.
So Mike, you hit it on the head. You blame me for instigating this. But my end goal here was exactly this. I'm running because I'm running, but my end goal was to instigate the fact that more people need to be involved in what's going on. Whether it's these guys that get reelected or it's 3 other people that get put on the board, it's the fact that somebody has got to step up and say, hey people, let's be involved. I saw what went on with Harvey, the headquarters and Grand Central Station through the mud board over there. I was over there 2 or 3 times. My wife was over there 2 or 3 times. But it was just a constant barrage of information. It was communication. It was coordination. To me, it's just let's get everybody more involved. Whether these gentlemen get back on the board, as long as we, ma'am.
Is it a 4-year term?
Yes.
Yeah. As long as we as taxpayers and residents get more engaged. And for me, the only thing I would say is I need that time to change so I can be more engaged. I can't justify leaving work to go to a meeting all the time. It's just, I want to be involved. And if I can't be involved, I want more people like me to be involved.
They claim they changed it to 7 o'clock a few years back, and still nobody showed
Well,
up.
what happened there, they
was
changed
before
it,
we were on.
they changed it during the winter, it was dark, nobody
Well,
came,
it's
they
before
just
I
did it
was
for a couple of
involved.
months.
Yeah.
I think this would be a good time to start,
Part
right?
of
In
the
the summer,
problem-
get people
Part
used
of
to
the
it.
problem is, I didn't even know when you guys, that you even had these.
So here's an idea. Why don't we ask all of the residents what time they would like the meeting, and then take the majority rule and say this is what time the meeting is. You know?
I mean, as president of the RPCIA, we wouldn't mind if you guys would like to use our sign to post 72 hours prior, which is law, to, that your
Post the
meeting's
meetings on
coming.
your webpage.
Yeah. I think you guys used to put out a sign, someone told me
Hey,
that.
the only sign he puts out, he posts over in front of the mud office.
We have
It's-
prescribed areas where we have to put notification.
That's
But
what
I
we
mean,
talked
for the
about. I've never
last,
even seen it.
whatever,
We
we always meet on the last Thursday of
2
the
years,
month.
2 years ago, we had him put them at the entrance, up here in front, entrance in the back, and the entrance right there where EP and they come together. It didn't help, nobody bothered to show up.
Maybe
Well,
you'll
you
try
guys
it
want-
again.
we posted
That's
for
2
you.
years ago.
If we know
You
There's
you
a lot-
can
lot of
post
new
whatever you
people.
want, that's fine.
I don't think you can.
I think in all these things and everything, what everybody said, and I'm all on the webpage, I think that needs to increase. All those things need to be done. But really what people are worried about is clean water, and every time they open up their tap and water comes out, they're not really concerned what the board is doing. The only time they get concerned if they turn on and it's brown, or the water gets cut off, or they have a sinkhole in their backyard.
The last election that was held, the year we ran, none of us got over 101 votes. So it means there's only 100 people going to vote.
That's true. Every
Well, I
vote
think
in
it's
this
just
room counts.
education and, you know,
That's, you're
I've
right.
never really gotten
Just a small
involved.
group. We all live blocks from each other.
But
I
there's,
was gonna
just so you know, there's an election every 2 years for every 2 years. 4 years, we serve 4 and then 2 more, there's
Is there a
2 more.
term
and then-
limit?
Pardon?
Is there a term limit?
No.
No?
So the closest
we
one I
talked
live to
about
would
it,
be
but-
D. We share the view of a tank.
63 years.
Yes, I can see it from my front and backyard. She
But for
can
that-
too.
But the good thing
But
is,
for that
all your
tank, you
neighbors are
wouldn't
so
have water
happy for that
12
tank.
days.
No, sir, I have 15 days worth of water stored in my house at all times.
Well, most people don't.
I keep mine in the pipe.
How many members are on the board?
There's
5.
5 members on the board.
How many for
It's
So
three-
what happens, in every 2 years, so for 4 years, 3, and then they're up, then 2. So in 2 years, there'll be 2 board members will go up, and then 2 more years, 3 will go up.
How long do you plan to continue on, if y'all been at this a while?
I'd like one more time.
This would be my last time. I'm getting too old.
You quit, no,